Okay, I believe we are live for another exciting interview. And today, I really am very excited and honored to introduce to you all Dan Blanchard, a best-selling, award-winning author, speaker, educator, and TV host. Dan, a very warm welcome to you, and thank you for joining me.
Oh, thanks, James. I'm so happy to be here on your show, and I look forward to spending some time talking with your audience.
Wonderful. Now, Dan, please, can you just tell us a little bit in your own words to best describe post-COVID, what you were up to and what a typical day looked like for Dan?
Oh, yeah, sure. It's funny. I was just at a youth summit. I was just talking about the same thing, and I always said that it's like seasons of your life. You know what I'm saying? This COVID-19 coronavirus, it's just seasons of your life. Some people may know this, but I'm also a history teacher. Is one of the things I do as an educator. So I taught about like the 1918 pandemic, the 1957 one in the United States. There's been 4 other before this. So in historical speaking, it's seasons of your life. But when it comes to your personal well-being, your personal development, it's also just another season of your life. It's going to come, it's going to go. Now, for some people, they're just going to just sit back and not do much. You know what I'm saying? They're going to sit there and watch TV, maybe eat too much. Some people might drink too much. You're going to put on a few pounds, maybe more pounds than you want to. And the 3 months is going to go by, or 6 months is going to go by, or whatever it is. It's going to come by, and you're going to come out the back end. And for some people, they're not going to really be in a better position than when they went in. Now, for other people, it's a different ballgame. I mean, this season of their life is going to allow them to do certain things that they've always wanted to do, but haven't had time to do. Yeah. This is a great time to enrich your life and do things that you haven't been able to do. So, for an example, let's say you want to learn a musical instrument, but you're just saying, I'm just too busy. I'll never have time to do that until I retire. Well, guess what? I think you might have a little time right now to learn that musical instrument. How about all those people out there saying, I want to write a book, but again, never can do that until maybe I retire. That'd be the first time in my life I may have time. Well, guess what? Maybe that book writing season's here right now. For the next 3 months, 6 months, think of the great start you could get on writing a book, maybe even complete it. So, if you want to learn to draw, if you want to learn to paint, if you've been meaning to paint the bathroom and just haven't gotten to it, or your bedroom, if you want to wake up every single day and look at a cooler bedroom, you can. You've got the time right now to enrich your life. I mean, I'm out in the yard doing yard work every day. Right? I'm even creating and building a medieval fort in my yard. I get a lot of rocks. So I'm digging up these rocks and building these rock walls and making my yard so I can mow it, and beautiful green grass can grow now in areas that couldn't grow. And me and my kids have a medieval fort that I'm working on that someday we're going to play in it. And someday when this season's over and we come out the back end, I'm going to be driving my car down my driveway saying, yeah, this is a pretty cool place. So I'm going to enjoy looking at it. So there's just 1,000,001 things you can do to come out on the back end. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. All right, maybe you are missing, maybe you're a high school kid and you're missing your sports season. All right. Well, maybe there's some technique you want to work on that you haven't gotten to. Maybe there's a different kind of fitness, athletic training you wanted to do, but haven't gotten to. Maybe you don't have good flexibility. So maybe this is a good time to squeeze in some yoga, into your life. How about this? Maybe this is a good time to start squeezing in cooking home meals and working on better nutrition so that you come out the back end of this in a better place than when you went in on it. Maybe it's a time to get your finances straightened out a little bit. You know what I'm saying? This is good that me and my family are not eating out a couple times a week. The nutrition's good. And the money we're saving from not eating out a couple times a week. You know what I'm saying? So for me, in a nutshell, this has been a blessing. I know some people are depressed, sad, gaining weight, thinking that this is lost time. This is not lost time. I mean, I'm up every single morning super early, writing books. I've got a bunch of books that are like partially done that I'm finishing up. And then after that, I'm teaching virtual school for a few hours up to about noon. And then from there, I'm working in the yard, getting my sunshine, fresh air, exercise. And in fact, when I look out my window, I see something better than it was before. You know what I'm saying? I've taken out a couple online university classes that I'm a professor at. So, and then at night, guess what? Me and my wife are finally catching up on some of our Netflix series, and we're spending time together, just hanging out. I mean, this is just a season of your life, and if you use your time wisely, if you're smart about it, this is a really good season of your life. I mean, you could still do what you got to do. I mean, I'm still teaching school, high school, but look at all the other things I'm doing now.
Yes.
So why not? Why wouldn't you make a good use of your time with this?
Oh, Dan, it's very, very well said. And in particular, I'm drawn to what is clearly a tremendous work ethic. Can you expound on where that came from? Was it your family? Can you tell me where this great drive, determination, and work ethic came from, Dan?
That's a great question, James. I think back to like when I was a kid, I was always like the runt, of the litter, the smallest kid. I grew up on the wrong side of the train tracks, so I wasn't like hitting any home runs academically in school either. Rough upbringing. So for me, I mean, I didn't really have much I could do except, I played sports. Yeah. And when you played sports, I mean, you don't have to be the smartest guy in the world to play sports. You don't even have to know to read well to play sports. So I played sports. I started making a little progress because I just noticed that I was outworking everybody. And when I was outworking everybody, again, I didn't have to be the best reader in the team. I didn't have to be the fastest, the biggest, the strongest, the most experienced, nothing. But if I outworked people, I started getting better in the sports I was playing. And then I was playing football, basketball, baseball. Eventually went over to wrestling, and I became a 2-time junior Olympian wrestler. Wow. I think based on just effort. I mean, I remember one time, one of my junior Olympic teammates, I was out with him and another junior Olympic teammate, and one of them was truly gifted. He's been wrestling since he was like 3 years old. His dad brought him all over the country, the world wrestling. Everybody knew that he was going to be awesome. Right? The other guy, crazy strength, right? Just really, really just tough and all that stuff. And, I'm sitting there having lunch with these guys. And the bigger guy, he says to me, Dan, he goes, I watched you wrestle. And he goes, I swear, you were just out there willing it to happen. Just willing it, like you would not quit. Your effort, that you were just going and going and going, and you just willed your way into being an elite wrestler. You know what I'm saying? And the really cool thing about this was 10 years later, I was actually twice the junior Olympic wrestling coach. And a lot of people say that great wrestling coaches, let me back up, great wrestlers don't always make the great wrestling coaches. Yes. Because they don't understand why the kids just can't do it. You know what I'm saying? But for me, I got it. I understood it. And it really helped me be a great coach, was that I understood that not every kid was super talented, super fast, super tall, super strong, or super gifted, or just lucky. Not every kid had a father that was dragging them around the country, giving them all sorts of sports opportunities and coaching, best coaches in the world. You know what I'm saying? So I understood that, most kids didn't have this. And most kids, it was a learning process and a slow learning process where the coach needed to have some patience, and bring them along. And with effort, you could overcome your shortcomings. I got that, and it made me a much, much better coach. So I think I've always had that work ethic, and I still have it. I started off with sports, then it went into schooling, and I ended up getting, complete. And once the education bug bit, I ended up completing 14 years of college and getting 7 degrees. You know what I'm saying? And then it went into my profession, becoming a teacher, a coach, and then later an author. I've written maybe almost 20 books now. About a half a dozen of them are bestsellers. Well done. You know what I'm saying? It went into me being a father, always giving that extra effort. The husband, you know what I'm saying? There's a lot of work in being a good husband, a good father. know what I'm saying? So you got to put the work in to do that stuff. So for me, it's always been there, and it's always kind of knocked on whatever door was next. You know, the next season of my life, the next stage of my life, and say, here I am. What am I going to do? Well, I'm going to be a father now. I'm going to do it. Let's do it right. Let's give 110% in doing that. So now what season are we in now? COVID-19, right? So what are we going to do? Let's do it right. Let's give 110% to come out on the other end of this in a better place than when we went in it. I mean, we could do this. Every one of us could do this. So I say just work hard. Work hard, and when you start having success, hopefully that success, you know, encourages you to keep working hard, because if you do, you'll have more success. And that's pretty much the formula. Work hard, have a little success, work hard again, have a little bit more success.
Oh, I love it, Dan. And what really strikes me when you say that is the power of your perspective in managing all of these various transitions. And as you say, we're going through another transition. So we could look at it as being negative. I love the power of your positive thinking. Can you talk a little bit, Dan, on managing those transitions from maybe being an engaged man to a married man, from experiencing trauma and stress to coming out with, on the other side, victory and triumph? Can you speak a little bit about how you've managed that, Dan?
You know, it's funny, James. It's sort of like my grandmother. My grandmother, she went to Yale during a time where women like didn't really go to college.
Amazing.
And yes, she was in the music department because to eventually become a music teacher. You know what I'm saying? Because that was kind of what was acceptable for women back then.
Yes.
Was that you became a teacher if you were a woman, but once you got married and got pregnant, that kind of went away, you know, and you went home, became a mom, right? But my grandmother used to always say, oh, by the way, she graduated from Yale at 18 years old.
Amazing.
So picture that, right? Yeah. But my grandmother used to always say to me, she used to say, this too shall pass. You know what I'm saying? So when you think about it, nothing we're doing is life or death. You know, pretty much it may feel that way sometimes. It may stress us out when we're going from one thing to another. We have to transition into something else. You know, change. Nobody likes change. Change is difficult. You know, the fear of the unknown. That bothers all of us, the fear of the unknown. You know, but like Henry James, the founder of modern psychology, said, 90% of the worst things that have ever happened to me only happened in my mind. You know what I'm saying? It never really happened. All these terrible things I feared, you know, all these terrible things I worried about, the unknown, never really happened. And I just think this whole worrying and this fear thing of transitioning into a new stage in your life is a terrible use of our imagination. You know what I'm saying? Our imagination is a creative genius inside of us. And it should be used. Our imagination should be used as the creative genius it was meant to be by our creator. You know, not as some fearmonger, you know, some worrywart, you know what I'm saying? But that's what we do. So like my grandmother said, James, this too shall pass. It's not going to be as bad as we think. No. You know what I'm saying? It's not life or death. So let's go in here. Yeah, there's going to be some things that we're not going to know. There's going to be some unknown fear. But instead of being scared, how about be exhilarated about the next stage or the next transition of your life?
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Get in there, because guess what? This now is like a new learning opportunity. This is now a time to sharpen your intelligence, meet new people, build new skills, build more intelligence. You know, and maybe if you're getting older in life, you know, delay the whole Alzheimer's sort of thing that starts taking over our minds when we're not learning anything new. Yes. You know what I'm saying? I met Jim Peckham many, many years ago. He's an Olympic wrestling coach. And I believe it was the 76, I think, Olympic team that he was the U.S. Olympic coach. And I met him, and when I met him, James, he was showing this move, and some high school kid said, hey, coach, can we do this move a different way? It was at the clinic. Yeah. And everybody was like, oh my gosh, what is that kid thinking? You don't tell the Olympic coach how to do a move. You know what I'm saying? And the Olympic coach, Jim Peckham, who's, you know, he's gone now, but he looked at this young, like 14-year-old boy, and he sat there and he kind of scratched his chin a little bit. He'd put the hair out of his face, and he went, yeah, I think you could do it that way too. I hadn't really thought about that, but I
Amazing.
think you can. And then Jim Peckham says, hey, when you stop learning in this sport, it's time to hang up your shoes. And I have never forgotten about that.
Very
And
powerful.
to
Very
this
powerful.
day, I'm not hanging up my wrestling shoes or any shoes that I have.
Wow. Oh, that is so powerful. Thank you for sharing that, Dan. That really, gosh, that really touches me. That reminds me something my beautiful grandma used to say, which was always be a lifelong learner. And yes, maybe when I was young, I didn't fully understand that. But as I've grown and had the privilege to continue learning myself, I now see the value in that. And Dan, as an educator yourself, can you speak a bit about the importance of being a lifelong learner and indeed passing on whatever knowledge and wisdom we may have gained to the next generation, as I know you do with your work with the teens and so on?
I'm so glad you brought that up, James, because for the last 2+ decades, I've been writing books and speaking and teaching and doing all that. And one of the common themes that I have emphasized over and over and over again is to be a lifelong learner.
Yeah.
You know, when my students or even when my colleagues are impressed by where I am today, I'm saying even my old teachers, I bump into my old teachers, once in a while, and they shake their head, they smile, and they laugh, and they go, damn, Blanchard, I would have never imagined, right? And I'm like, yeah, you'd be surprised if you're being a lifelong learner. I was a straight C student in high school. I got just enough grades to play sports. That was about it, right? But if you're a lifelong learner, you can make incredible things happen, right? So when my old teachers or my colleagues or my students, or my family members, when they're impressed with where my lifelong learning has gotten me so far, I'm always thinking, thank you, that's awesome. I appreciate that. But wait for another 5 years or 10 more years and see where I'm at then. I go, how about 20 or 30 or 40 more years? I can't even imagine. It's mind blowing where I'm going to be then. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm a lifelong learner. So the other side of that coin is you become a better lifelong learner, James, when you start sharing what you know. I always say teach to learn, give to get. You know what I'm saying? I always say that.
Oh, that's
When
great.
I first learned
Can you
this
just repeat
was when
that,
I
Dan?
was
I
20
really like
years
that.
old.
Sorry, can you just repeat that? I want to make
Yes,
a note of that.
I've always said, you got to teach to learn and you got to give to get. And when I first learned that in a way that really stuck with me, I was a 20-year-old young man and I got hired to be a high school wrestling coach, right? Again, I'm a 2-time state champ, 2-time junior Olympian wrestler and all that. And I got in there and I got all this muscle memory about how to do this and how to do that. And I got to tell you, in the beginning, it was a little weird because I was like, well, why don't the kids just do what I tell them to do? You know what I'm saying? So what I had to learn before that season was over, I had to learn to break every little teeny, eeny, weeny thing down into a way that I could explain to the kids what I was doing in a way that they could get it, understand it, and apply it instead of me just reacting with muscle memory. You know what I'm saying? And when I found myself going through these tiny steps that make up my fluid movements, I started understanding the sport of wrestling way back. Wrestling was all about, because I was a 2-time junior Olympian and on my way to be soon a 2-time junior Olympian coach. So I thought I knew what it was all about. But when I began coaching and teaching the sport of wrestling, that's when I really started to get a real understanding of the sport of wrestling.
Right.
And then I became a school teacher, and I started teaching history. And I thought I knew a little bit about history, but I know 100 times more about history now that I'm a history teacher. And not only was I a history teacher, but I'm also simultaneously a special education teacher at the same time. So I do both. I work in a special school where
Yes.
I do both. You know what I'm saying? So I thought I knew like some education pedagogies and the science and art of teaching, but doing it, teaching kids with special needs. You know what I'm saying? Kids that learn differently, which we all, no, none of us just fit in a box.
No.
You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, I learned so much about teaching. You know what I'm saying? So I taught to learn. Started off with wrestling first, then it got in the classroom. And then what I was learning was I was always giving of myself, giving of myself, giving of myself, right? And then it started kind of coming back. You know what I'm saying? I'm giving of myself, giving of myself. The next thing I know, James, people like you are contacting me saying, hey, I'd love to have you on my show. Hey, love to have you write a column. Love to have you write an article. Love to have you write a blog. Hey, come on my TV show. Hey, come on my radio show. Hey, can I buy some of your books? Hey, can I do this? Hey, can I share a stage with you? Can you come on my stage? Hey, can you? And I get people all the time reaching out to me to share great moments with me that they created. You know what I'm saying? I didn't create this I didn't create this show here today. You did. James, you created this great moment for me and you to share together to like improve the quality of my life, the joy in my life, and through it boomerangs right back over where now I'm giving to your audience.
Yes.
Some of my insights. So it's just something that's just so reinforced. You know what I'm saying? You give to get.
Yes.
You teach to learn.
Wonderful.
You know what I'm saying? These are the things you do that are going to improve the little circles around you, and like throwing a pebble into a pond. Those little circles kind of get a little bit wider, right?
Yeah.
So as long as you keep teaching people, sharing what you know, giving 100% of yourself, 110% of yourself, and you're kind. You have to be kind. You got to be friendly. But if you're doing these things, you already are most likely.
Yes.
A kind, friendly, good-hearted person, right? You're teaching, you're giving, and that little circle is getting better. You're making the world better, and it's getting bigger, and it's getting bigger, and it's getting bigger. Those circles, right? Like
Yes.
like the pebble in the pond, right? And you're making bigger and bigger and bigger circles better, right? And then in the same point, those circles are making you better. You know what I'm saying? Because they just are. It's just that kind of unwritten universal law.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
It's just
Dan,
two-way.
that's beautifully put. And thank you for sharing. And on this point, I'd love to hear your opinion on so many people have previously said to me that they're waiting for an keyword here being waiting, Dan. They're waiting for someone to give them the stage, waiting for someone to bestow greatness upon them, waiting for an opportunity to serve. What I notice about men like you is that you didn't wait to serve. You served where you were planted. Can you speak about the power of that, please, Dan?
Absolutely. I'm so glad you brought that question up, James. I just wrote a chapter of a new book about how most of those authors that I'm surrounded by are retired.
Wow.
And I'm the Connecticut president of the Association of Publishers for Special Sales. It's an independent authors and independent publishers association. I'm the president. And I'm like 20 years younger than like everybody else there.
Wonderful.
You know what I'm saying? Everybody's like retired who I associate with, in those circles. Because the thing is, they wait. They wait till they're retired, because then they think that's when they'll have time to write their book. And the chapter I just wrote, it said, no, don't wait till you're older and wiser to write a book. You may think that makes sense, but you know what makes better sense? Do it when you're young. So now your peers start seeing you as some sort of expert. Your day job starts respecting you more and starts giving you more opportunities to sit on expert panelists. Leadership teams, gives you pay raises, job promotions, because you didn't wait and you created that expert status early in your life, right? So why would you? And then the journey for the next 30 years is going to be way better if you don't wait to the end to do this sort of thing. You do it in the beginning, the journey gets way better. The other thing I say is, guess what? The Easter Bunny's not coming to save you. Neither is Santa Claus, neither is the Tooth Fairy, right? None of that is coming. Santa Claus is not coming to save you. This is a do-it-yourself project. your life is a do-it-yourself project. You cannot sit back and wait for the Easter Bunny to come and give you the life that you want. It ain't happening. Nobody's showing up on your doorstep. Nobody's coming to save you. And I know that may sound like a little cruel to some people, but it's actually a gift. Because if you keep waiting for someone to come and save you, if you keep waiting for the Easter Bunny to come and give you something, you're going to be waiting a long, long time. Next thing you know, you're going to be retired saying, I should have done this, I should have done that. Next thing you know, you're going to be in your 80s rocking on your front porch in that rocking chair, you know, counting up all the regrets you have in life. You know what I'm saying? I got to tell you, people don't go through when they're rocking in that chair at the end of their life. They don't sit there and think about all the dumb things they did. They most often think about the things they missed out on, the regrets they have, the things they should have done and could have done. But for some reason, they just couldn't seem to kick themselves in the butt enough to do it. You know what I'm saying? Or nobody else kicked them in the butt and held them to the fire to make them do it. Or, you know, or why didn't Santa Claus ever show up and make them do it, right? That's what's going to happen with the rocking chair regrets at the end of their life. No one's coming to save you. You got to do it yourself. Life is a do-it-yourself project. And if you do it in the beginning of your life, early in your life, instead of the end of your life, the ride, the journey through life. We all know that life is not a destination, it's a journey, right? Yeah. The journey through life is going to be so much better when you do it the way I'm preaching. So do it now, don't wait.
Oh, it's great advice, Dan. And actually, there's a nice flow to this. I'd like to lead into something that's just I've thought about. Those that may be listening that are struggling with motivation, and those that haven't are unable to work with someone like yourself to be held accountable. Can you share any tips, tools, or strategies that might begin lighting that fire for their motivation, intrinsically or otherwise?
Absolutely. Goya, G-O-Y-A. Some people may see it as a Spanish international type of food or seasoning or whatever they see it. I don't. I see Goya, G-O-Y-A, as get off your arse. Get off your arse. Once you get off your arse and you start moving, you're doing something. You know, Roosevelt, during the Great Depression, might have been one of the greatest presidents ever in the United States. He always said, above all, do something, right? So this is what I've learned about doing something. Motion creates emotion. So let me say that again. Motion creates emotion. When you put your body in motion, doing the smallest thing, maybe the most insignificant thing in your mind, you're going to start to get your emotions rolling a little bit. And once your emotions start rolling a little bit, those emotions are going to supply you with energy to keep doing more, which will lead to eventually effort. Yeah. Right? So now your emotion creates emotion, right? Which creates energy, which creates effort. And after sustained effort, you cannot help but have some success. And a little success will lead to more motivation for you to repeat the cycle. All right. So it all starts with in the beginning. Goya, get off your arse. Once you start moving your body, once you have motion, you create emotion, right? Yes. Which goes right down the line to where you want to go with motivation. Now, if you don't think, if some people out there, James, some of your audience is not sure what I'm talking about, you know, right now, all of them, I mean, any one of them, right now, jump up, put your head up, look to the sky, put a huge smile on your face, jump up a little bit like an athlete does before a competition, and then sit back down real quick. And I bet you right now you're feeling 100% better. I bet you right now you're feeling motivated, at least a little bit. Yeah. Your body's operating differently right now. And that was, what, maybe 2 seconds of motion?
Yes. Yeah. No, it's very powerful, Dan, and thank you for sharing that. The power of being able to change states, and as you say, it's a lot quicker than a lot of people, I think, imagine. Now, I would love to hear your opinion on what I call the power of purpose. It's so clear to me that you are a man that is led by purpose. And I know in part that having a strong purpose can get a lot done. Dan, can you speak about maybe where you found purpose, or maybe an early inspiration or mentor that helped you focus your purpose, please?
Absolutely. I mean, many years ago, I read Rick Warren's book, The Purposeful, I forget, Life, Purpose Living, or something like that. It was a great book all about purpose. And at that time, I hadn't realized that I was actually living a life of purpose. I didn't know it yet. I was still, a young man, and I didn't get it. See, here's the thing. I grew up on the wrong side of the tracks. I had an abusive alcoholic father, dysfunctional family, living in poverty.
Sorry,
The
Dan,
father was struggling with some
can you remind us where that was, please? I haven't, where you grew up. Please remind me.
in the United States and Connecticut,
Right. Yeah.
which is nestled right in between Boston and New York City.
I see.
Is Connecticut. Okay, so shows where he self-medicated with alcohol. All right, I was the type of boy that wasn't going to make it. You know what I'm saying? My brother didn't make it. My little brother didn't make it. Eventually, my mom, she's no longer with us. She didn't make it. You know what I'm saying? I come from those circumstances. And at some point, I land as a school teacher in the special education programs with troubled kids who have huge behavioral problems, because many of them are growing up the same way I grew up. You know what I'm saying? Just trauma, trauma infested lives. You know what I'm saying? So who's helping those kids? Who's getting those kids through it? Me. You know what I'm saying? I'm their example. I'm their inspiration. I'm the guy that's not going to give up on them, even when they tell me, to go F myself every single day. I'm the guy that's not going to quit on them. I'm the guy that loves them and sees the purpose of what I'm doing and what they're going to be doing someday when they pay it forward. When they become older, and thank God that they had a guy like me, or maybe a woman similar, of qualities in their life.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? And then they're paying it forward, and they can connect with troubled kids that were dealt a bad hand of cards. And unfortunately in this world, there's way too many kids out there that are being dealt a bad hand of cards. You know what I'm saying? And what are we going to do with them? You know what I'm saying? We're just going to wash them away? That ain't going to happen. We're going to throw them all in jail? That's not the solution. You know what I'm saying? So what are we going to do with them? We're going to let them run the streets and terrorize the neighborhoods? No, we have to somehow make better people of them. We have to somehow give them hope, somehow stack the deck a little more favorably, you know what I'm saying, for these people to grow up to be decent citizens that can be decent fathers and mothers. You know what I'm saying? And right now, we're lacking that. We're lacking that. But my purpose is to change that one student at a time,
Yes.
One athlete at a time. I'm changing that, and I'm inspiring others to jump on my wagon and try to do the same. You know what I'm saying? Go out there, get a kid that's struggling, and realize that kid's struggling probably for a reason. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And do whatever you can do to be the one positive relationship in that kid's life, because every kid only needs one positive relationship to have a chance of turning things around.
Yes.
And we can do it. So why not? Why not be that one positive relationship in that kid's life? You're making that kid's life better. Believe it or not, you're making your life better. And in some small ways, you're making the world a better place. And that's what we all should be trying to do, making the world a better place.
Ah, absolutely, Dan. Very well said. We're coming to a close of the first part of this interview. We will pick this up, absolutely. But I wanted to just speak about some of your work, and please could you provide, first of all, I'd like you to talk about your books, and we will expound upon this in the next interview, but also where people can find them and some of your actual links on social media so people can get to know you and your work, Dan.
Oh, absolutely, James. So people can find me on danblanchard.net,
Right.
and they can find me on granddaddysecrets.com. Saying they can find me on Amazon under Dan Blanchard. A lot of my leadership books are there. And they can also find me under Daniel Blanchard
Right.
on Amazon. A lot of my academic
Yes.
books are there. They can find me in all the social media channels, pretty much like, the Facebook, the LinkedIn, the Twitter, the Instagram, the Pinterest. I'm on all of them. I have a YouTube channel under Dan Blanchard.
Great.
Definitely check me out there. They can find me on Mindalia TV, English. You can definitely find me there. And if you go on any of these places, there's contact information where you can reach out to me, and I will return your email if you reach
Wonderful.
out to me. So please check me out on social media, on the web, and reach out to me. I'll get back to you.
Wonderful, Dan. And is there one book, if you had to recommend the best place as an introduction to you and your work, is there one book you would push more than the others just to get the ball rolling?
One of my favorite books is called The Storm: How to Make Young Men into Good Men. And it also has with it a student workbook and a teacher workbook for educational institutions that are traditional and non-traditional. This is a great book about a struggling kid and about a granddaddy that comes back into his life to change the path, the trajectory of this kid's life. I'm saying it's been read and endorsed by some of the most amazing people out there. Or not, so definitely check out The Storm. You won't be sorry if you read that book. I'm telling you.
And is that a book you co-authored? Was that one of yours, Dan?
No, I authored that one all by myself with the workbooks that go with it. I had people, tutors from all over the world, that were using The Storm to tutor kids all over the world.
Yeah.
And one of the tutors reached out to me and she said, "We need a workbook." And I'm like, yeah, and she knew my book inside and out. And she was teaching kids lessons through my book. So I said, why don't we co-author a student workbook? So me and Eagle Moon Rays, we co-authored a student workbook, and we co-authored a teacher workbook to go with The Storm. Brilliant. So now there's no excuse not to use it. You know what I'm saying? It's all right there laid out for you, nice and simple. And it's one of the most intriguing, exciting, fascinating, filled wisdom, nuggets of wisdom. I mean, it literally would change your life if you read the book, The Storm: How Young Men Become Good Men by Dan Blanchard.
Wonderful. Oh, thank you. That's a beautiful place just to close this first part of our interview down. Dan, I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for the work that you do and for the light that you spread. And I admire and respect your work ethic. And it's been a real honor and a pleasure speaking with you today.
Likewise, and thank you, James, for giving me this opportunity to be with you and your audience.
My pleasure. Thank you, Dan.